Alright guys, welcome back to the D&D 5e subclass series. We are now moving into the Warlock subclass.
That's right.
The otherworldly patrons.
Yes.
And we are talking about first the Archfey subclass. So, again, for those of you who might be new, we're going to talk about all of the abilities in the subclass first, and then we're going to rate them based on RP value, combat value, and class synergy overall. And again, this is going to be based on how the abilities impact the base class, not necessarily how good the class is compared to every other class and subclass. So, with that,
Yes.
jump right into it.
Yes. We'll start with kind of the expanded spell list. So the other spells you get access to for picking the Archfey as your otherworldly patron, because they have, when they do all these subclass names, it can't just be like, here are your subclass options. They have to give it a specific name for all different ones, which is fine, whatever. You get Fairy Fire and Sleep. You get Calm Emotions, Phantasmal Force, Blink, and Plant Growth, Dominate Beast, Greater Invisibility, and Dominate Person and Seeming. So a lot of RP kind of spells in there for the most part, except you do get the 2 Dominate spells. You don't get Dominate Monster. It's a big boy spell. But you do get Dominate Beast and Dominate Person and Greater Visibility. Mm-hmm. Overall, definitely the 3 best ones in that list, I think. I think both of us kind of agreed based on conversation. The only big challenge with the Warlock side of things is by the time you get Dominate Beast and Greater Invisibility at 4th level spell slots, you're already level 7. And you only have 2 spell slots. So let's say,
Those are your 2 spells right
those
there.
are 2 spells. And granted, they're good ones. And granted, as a Warlock, you do get your spell slots back on a short rest, unlike all your rest of your casters. But it's still only 2. So you're like, hey, I want to dominate that owlbear, and then I'm going to go Greater Invisibility, I'm going to cast Eldritch Blast, and that's your combat.
Eldritch Blast for the
That's
rest of the game.
So there's some good ones in there, some interesting things that gives Warlock options they don't already have, but same time you're limited with spell slots on Warlock, so
yeah.
Fey Presence is the other ability you do get at level 1. Essentially, you get a free AoE charm in a small area, a 10-foot cube originating from yourself. You can use once per rest, either short or long rest. Make a spell save DC against you, and it is a wisdom saving throw, as most charms are. And they are charmed or frightened by you if they fail that saving throw. Of course, this is at level 1, so right out the front, you get an AoE charm, which is an unusual thing to have at that level. So especially at low levels, I can see this being very effective, especially in RP settings. If you want to terrify a small group of people in front of you, or charm a small group of people if you're trying to get some information out of them in an urban setting or that kind of thing. Yeah. Be very useful early on. As you get into the higher levels, may not be as effective, because even though your DC is going to climb, so everything else you're going to be fighting is the saving throws abilities to break that thing. So early on, effective. Later on, maybe not so much.
And then later on, at level 6, you're going to gain Misty Escape. Not Misty Step.
It's similar.
Yeah. Basically, whenever you take damage, you can use your reaction to turn invisible and teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space. You have to be able to see the space. You can't, go behind something, per se, but you can go right beside something. You stay invisible until the start of your next turn, or until you attack or cast a spell. So it's kind of like a short-term invisibility spell for free. It's once per short or long rest. And it only keeps you invisible until until the start of your next turn. So it's kind of just like you get hit once, and you're not going to get hit probably anymore in that round of combat. So, it might help you, but, if you're getting hit by lots of stuff, you're probably in trouble anyway, honestly. So.
You also do get Beguiling Defenses at level 10, which grants you immune to being charmed altogether. If you chose an elf as a race, this is really not that helpful to you, because you already have advantage on saving throws against being charmed as an elf, but you become immune to being charmed. And the cooler part of it is, if somebody does indeed try to charm you, you can actually use your reaction to reflect that charm back at them, and make a wisdom saving throw and be charmed by you for a minute or until they take damage. This is really cool if it becomes able to be used.
Yeah.
Because there is no limit to the amount of times you can do this. It's not a per rest thing or uses or whatever. But somebody has to attempt to charm you.
Yeah.
Which, how often does that happen on a magical basis? Most campaigns, not all the time. It could be clutch maybe in a certain situation.
For sure.
The heavier an RP setting you're in, more likely it is to be helpful. But you'll go probably 4, 5, or 6 sessions and never use this at times.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, at level 14, you get Dark Delirium. Basically, you can use an action to, it specifically says, plunge a creature into an illusionary realm.
Plunge.
Sounds pretty nice.
Seems dark.
You have to be able to see the creature within 60 feet of you, and it makes a wisdom saving throw against the effect. And you choose if it's either charmed or frightened for 1 minute or until concentration breaks. So it is counted as concentration, so if you're already concentrating on like greater invisibility or something, you're gonna have some issues there. So a little bit of anti-synergy with that. Also, the effect ends early if the creature takes any damage. So you're basically trying to just single out, again, it's trying to do like a utility CC kind of thing as a warlock, which don't know how I feel too much about that yet. But basically, it also says that until the illusion ends, the creature can only see itself, you, and the illusion. So even if you do charm it, where it can't, because with the effect of charming, they can't attack the person they're charmed by.
Right.
But if they can't see anything else, that means they essentially can't attack anything because they're in this illusionary realm. So it's pretty decent way to kind of like, it's like a pseudo banish, kind of. But you know, if they take damage, if one of your friends casts an AoE spell or something, and it hits them, then it knocks them out of it automatically. So
Right.
very situational, or if you break concentration as well. So with that, I guess we'll move straight into the scoring section.
Yeah.
And first up, we have the roleplay value. We discussed this for a little bit here, and based on some of the expanded spell slots and the ability to charm, because usually when you're, you know, in combat and stuff, charming can be very sketchy, and also doesn't really have that big of an impact. Yes, they can attack you,
They still
but
attack
they can
everybody
still
else.
attack everyone else. So yeah, it does help you out, but in the end, how helpful is that really? So it can be in certain situations, but a lot of times I feel like charming is better in RP settings because you get advantage on your persuasion and things like that. So with that, we decided to give the RP value a 4, just because a lot of the abilities, you know, calm emotions, plant growth. Plant growth can be a CC utility thing as well, obviously, with using 4 movement speeds for every 1 foot instead of
Right.
half or whatever.
Super slow.
So, but also it has the option for the 8-hour
Yeah.
a half-mile radius, whatever, to like regrow everything.
Yeah.
So
Make the
that's
Amazon
very RP.
rainforest just pop up somewhere.
And then obviously greater invisibility has all kinds of uses. It's pretty much always good.
Yes.
Whether it's RP or combat, it's always good because it lasts for longer than regular invisibility, and it has less stipulations as to breaking out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously dominate person can be RP as well, and seeming is pretty much exclusively RP. Yes,
Yeah.
you can make weird things happen in combat where you can make all of your enemies look like your party so they get confused or whatever.
Sure.
So that's something you can do, but basically it gives you just the ability to make everyone in your party basically look like other people to sneak in around and stuff like that. So 4 again for the RP value.
To be honest, it's not looking good for the rest of the the rest of the scores. You look at the combat side of things, we went with a 2 because there is nothing offensive about this subclass in combat whatsoever. In all honesty, if it wasn't for your dominate spells and your greater invisibility, this might be lower than the 2.
Yeah.
Because you do have some free charms. You've got you have 2 different charm options, and you have the ability to bounce charm, which makes sense thematically for what Fae do.
Yeah.
Since your otherworldly patron is a Archfey, it makes sense as far as lore goes and things like that. But if you're fighting anything that's got advantage on saving throws against being charmed, immune to being charmed, things like that, most of what your subclass does is completely useless in combat or in RP if they have resistance to charms of any kind.
Yeah.
Is it dominate beast, dominate person, greater invincibility are always good. There's never a bad situation for those in combat. But once again, with a warlock, you've only got 2 spells, and then by the time you get dominate person, seeing you have 3 at that point, you're about to get 3 spells at that point. But still, that's it. You're going to cast dominate person and great invisibility. You have 1 spell slot left for that entire combat.
Yeah.
And so you using any kind of CC, it's like what Jameson said earlier. It's got to be impactful. Mm-hmm. So if it works, it is. But if you swing and a miss with a CC spell like that,
Yeah.
you've used either a half or a third of your spells, non-cantrip spells, that entire combat right out the front.
Yeah. So puts you in a really rough spot. It's really hard to fill that utility role having so few spell slots.
Right.
Yes, you get them back on short rest, but we're talking level 7, You got, well, until level 11, so through level 10, you have 2 spell slots.
It's this many.
You can't have that big of an impact in the utility department with 2 spell slots, in my opinion, especially if you want to try to use Greater Invisibility, then that limits you to 1 spell slot. I mean, Greater Invisibility is going to keep you alive. I mean, it's just, it's hard to have that big an impact, because like Alex was saying, if they resist or something like that, you're just out.
Yeah.
And you wasted half of your spell slots. You know, no other class has that issue like that. So, lastly, we'll move on to the overall class synergy. Again, not looking the greatest here, just because there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of synergy between, you know, there's not really a whole lot going on with your Eldritch Invocations that really synergize with the abilities or spells.
Or the pack, either of the packed options, really.
Yeah, the packed options, I mean...
Because you can pack the chain, you can get a Find Familiar, and it has the ability to cast some basic touch spells for you. But off the top of my head, I don't think any of these are touch-based spells, so that he can't even help you with that kind of thing with range of those options even.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't really synergize very well. So we gave it a 2 for the overall class synergy again. I mean, thematically, it's kind of out there a little bit. Yeah, you get the whole Archfey thing, whatever. If you want to go straight from the typical like demon, you know, fiend route that warlocks usually go, yeah, it's definitely a variation to that. But it's hard to try to justify a CC roll with such few spell slots. It's just really hard to accomplish doing much of an impact with that.
I mean, think about it. At later levels, even once you get like your level 11, even what are considered half casters are going to have more spell slots than what a warlock's going to have.
Yeah.
So your paladins and your rangers are still going to have more spell slots. It can be more effective utility-wise than a warlock can be with non-cantrip spells.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can try to argue Pact of the Chain, and you get to summon a sprite. I mean, that kind of goes with the Archfey thing, right? It's kind of synergy thematically, I guess.
But you can argue for a lot of things. We're looking at what's in the papers here more than anything else. You can be as creative as you want to be and make some interesting things out of whatever you want to do.
One of the nice things, though, is getting the ability. One of the reasons we didn't give it just a 1 is because of Beast Dominate Person. Because other classes, usually when you hit that like 4th or 5th level spell slot, you're getting like 1. But as a warlock, on your short rest, you get those refreshed. So you can have twice as many uses early on of those dominate spells, which can be game changing.
Yeah, combat ending at times.
To have that be the only thing that is, and it's kind of borderline, right? I don't know. It's just, it feels bad giving lower scores like that, just because it is cool to have something that's different from the standard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's hard to justify how it works. And again, like we'll say this all the time, don't just play something because of how we score it. Yeah. Play it because you want to play it, right? Like if you want to try to do this because it's different,
go for it.
Do it. It'd probably be a lot of fun to try to challenge yourself.
Sure. Especially if you're a more experienced player too.
To organize your spell slots and balance that and everything. But basically, guys, that's what we got for the Archfey Otherworldly Patron for the Warlock. We're going to keep these coming out to you guys as always. We're going to be making more of the Rollforge podcast videos. Got some travel things going on here. It's going to be
He's on vacation all the time, guys.
For a little while. But we'll try to get back up into another regular flow of that. Try to get that out, coming out more regularly for everybody to check that out. But make sure you look at it. We got lots of coming with WoW Classic and, of course.
You'll see a lot of WoW Classic content coming from us in the next few weeks with Classic launching on the 27th?
Yes. And also, now that we're back into the flow of our D&D campaign, we're kind of on hiatus there for a little while, so now we're playing pretty much weekly again. So
as long as
we have more stories, we have some interesting things that happen, like last time, some craziness.
Yes. Garistros, man! Whee! Freaking Garistros.
But with that, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, subscribe to the channel. Helps a ton, trying to hit that 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible.
Yes.
Hit the bell notification so all of our new videos come out. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.